We didn't realize we were on. We were just singing and singing and singing. So it's good to see everyone again. We begin with our Torah and Haftarah service for our 10 o'clock service. If you have a prayer book in front of you, we are now on page 255 for the words Ein Kamocha as we receive the Torah from the ark. If you're able, please rise.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai Adonai Himloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz lamo yitein. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom.
Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom.
Page 256, these words for the holidays, words, a plea for repentance.
Adonai, Adonai.
O God, compassionate,
El rachum v'cham,
gracious, endlessly patient,
erech apayim v'rav chesed
loving and true, showing mercy,
notzer chesed la'alafim,
God, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing. Adonai, Adonai, you who grants pardon.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Lechanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed Ve'emet,
Biblical words recited throughout the generations. As we recite a third and final time.
Adonai, Adonai, חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה.
Continuing with the words of Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'Nora Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromema shemo yachdav.
Noah, if you'll help me close the other door. And if you're at home, I ask you to be seated. For it's at this time it's become a tradition in our congregation for the president to speak to us, kind of a state of our congregation. And so this year, I'm pleased that Neil Silverstone's here. He is not in front of a virtual background. That is actually the beauty of our building. And so Neil is standing upstairs in what we call the treehouse. It's the room with the glass that's etched with trees. And so Neil, I invite you to share at this time.
Thank you. What does it mean to be a part of a whole, part of something bigger than yourself? A number of summers ago, a congregant was recovering from breast cancer, a double mastectomy. It was a long recovery. One day that summer, another congregant shows up at her door, someone she had never met before, a member of our caring community team. She brought with her a healing shawl that members of the caring community had knitted for her. She didn't know what to expect when she took the shawl from the bag, but she told me that when she wrapped it around herself, she felt the healing power in that shawl, the warmth, the hug. Through each strand of the shawl, she felt the community holding her while she healed. Each of those fibers show us in that moment how interwoven we are as a community. It's extraordinary. She wore that shawl most of the summer and felt the love and power of the community every time she put it on. In this moment of COVID-19, we're experiencing loss. The missed opportunity to spend time with friends after school drop-off, not being able to sit together in the sanctuary or classroom, the lack of physical touch, the loss of a job, and the most painful type of loss, our friends and family and members of the congregation have passed away from COVID-19. There's a hole, and it's real. So as I begin my time as president of the board of TBE in the midst of a pandemic, I wrestle with this question. What does it mean to be a part of a community? What does it mean to create a shawl that's big enough, interwoven enough to bind us together? The good news is that to answer this question, I don't have to go far. I can just ask members of our community, watch our clergy, professional and administrative staff, and our lay leadership do what they do. A congregant of 30 years writes, before the pandemic, we made it a habit to attend Friday evening services when we're around on the weekends. Since the pandemic, we've only missed 2 Shabbat services. It's a weekly marker of comfort and connection, reminding us that we are not alone in this. And we are learning this and we are hearing this message across generations. For a family with preschool children who's used to walking into the building 5 days a week, our community is accessible in an entirely different way. They've gone from rarely being with us Friday night to setting up a laptop at the dinner table, eating Shabbat dinner, and logging on to services. As she shared with me, seeing other people who are all experiencing the same thing, everybody is pausing, looking to Judaism and this community to give them hope. Our learning programs are taking on a new urgency. Something is happening at TBE every day of the week, and engagement is higher than ever across all generations. From healing and art, Broadway music, to studying Abraham Joshua Heschel. Again, we hear these words from our congregants. I don't feel alone. I feel I have a connection. When we see other participants and listen to what they have to say, the messages they have to share reminds us that there are good people doing good things, and that confirms our hope. I've always been proud that when our community answers the question of what it means to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, we don't forget that that means a responsibility to someone other than ourselves. We have reached out. Pre-pandemic, our building was a site to collect food for those in need. Now, our family table volunteers have made it possible to purchase items for the food pantry through an Amazon wish list. And we've collected more than ever. Our efforts on climate change, racial justice, and voter registration have not missed a beat. And we have reached in to strengthen the strands of our shawl. Over 100 volunteers have given countless hours to reach out to others in our community. And during this uncertain time, through both our annual campaign and the first stage of TBE's endowment campaign, our community stepped forward to support our efforts in ways we could not have imagined. Our campaign thrived and we pushed forward. We are in a better place financially than we would have been last year, thanks to the generosity of our congregants. We are a resilient community, but resilience is not just about surviving and thriving in the present, but about reflection and learning and becoming stronger for the future. We have learned how to reach people who don't or can't just walk into the sanctuary. We have learned that the strands of our shawl can be from next door, or they can be from halfway around the world in Haifa at our sister congregation, Ohel Avraham, where through Zoom and WhatsApp, we find friendship and common purpose in the strength of our shared peoplehood. We learn this by not being afraid to try new things. We learn because this moment forced us to make choices about what is most important to us. Imagine it's this past March. Your son is about to become a bar mitzvah. All the plans are in place. And imagine you walk out of your final rehearsal in the sanctuary and you get a call from Cantor Zell, who sadly tells you what perhaps you already know, that the bar mitzvah service, as you had envisioned it, can't happen in the building. How do you feel about November? In the summer, the family decided not to wait, to pivot, to focus on making sure as much of their family as possible, including all 6 grandparents, could be with them in person, maintain the elements of the service that were most critical, and hold the service in their backyard. Friends, family, and Rabbi Sapphire on Zoom with lots of Ethernet cable. Ethan, our bar mitzvah, embraced the change, that he was breaking new ground while sustaining the traditions of our people. Isn't that what becoming a bar mitzvah is about? For TBE, just like our bar mitzvah, this moment, and I quote Ethan's family, is an accidental opportunity to reignite a unique relationship with Judaism. We should take it. And in doing so, we should embrace the words of the well-known Jewish sage, Henry Winkler, who said, I live by 2 words, tenacity and gratitude. With tenacity, let us lean into all that we've learned to ensure that once this crisis is behind us, the new ways we've discovered to strengthen our shal not only stay with us, but empower us to continue to be the innovative community we have always been. And with gratitude, we are an extraordinary community that supports each other in often unimaginable ways. Yet all the programming, worship, the creation of a virtual makom, which happened in about 3 days in March when the shutdown happened, High Holy Days on Zoom, it doesn't just happen. And I know you all know this. These past 7 months, our incredible clergy, professional and administrative staff, and lay leadership have brought their energy, passion, and commitment every day. And I mean every day. Being in this work with them, with all of you, is the greatest honor of my lifetime. As we turn towards the new year, I'd like to ask all of us to reflect on 3 questions. What does it mean to be one strand in the incredible fabric of this community? What do we each need from TBE, and how can we be unafraid to reach out? And what can we each bring to TBE and step forward with intention? That is how we will continue to knit together our shal and together find our path towards wholeness for each individual, our community, and our world. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Thank you, Neil, so very much for all that you do for our community. We now continue with the first Aliyah, and for our first Aliyah, I'd like to invite all of our board members and leadership council members. If you have a shalom card or that was in your basket or can raise a hand, we would love to acknowledge you on Zoom. And I'm going to have the cantor lead us in the blessing.
And first, I'd like to call our first chanter to Torah, our student Teddy Friedman. Ya'amod Eliyahu Yitzchak ben Rivka ve'Ephraim la'aliyah rishona. And together we can join in the blessings on page 258 if you're following along in our machzor. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai havorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamavorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'Torah.
We hear from Teddy this verse from Deuteronomy 29, choose life, choose love, choose blessing.
Atem nitzavim hayom kulechem lifnei Adonai Elohechem roshechem shiftechem ziknechem v'shotrechem kol ish Yisrael tapchem nishechem v'gerecham asher bekerev machanecha machato v'tzecha ad she'av mimecha le'ovrecha bivrit Adonai Elohecha uve'alato asher Adonai Elohecha koretimcha hayom leman hakim otcha hayom lo le'am vehu yehi elecha le'elohim kasher diber lach v'kasher nishba la'avotecha la'Avraham le'Yitzchak u'le'Yaakov ve'lo itchem levadchem Anochi korei tabrit hazot ve'tala hazot כי את אשר ישנו פה עמנו עמד היום לפני אדוני אלוהינו ואת אשר איננו פה עמנו היום.
Yasher Koach, Teddy.
Yasher koach.
Do we have Bob Schechter in the virtual? There he is. Bob, I surprised Ryan last week. Do you have a prayer book where you can say the blessing after the Torah reading? If not, I'm going to have the cantor. Hey, great.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yasher
And
koach.
Bob, I am just so glad you could zoom into the sanctuary, because one of the losses of this past spring was our inability to honor you for all of your service, 3 incredible years of your presidency. And so I just wanted to really single you out amongst the board, even though you're continuing on the board as a past president, and I'm really grateful for that. But your presidency, as you know, was filled with extraordinary accomplishments, from our cantorial transition to the hiring of Stephen Ashkenos, our new executive director. Bob, you dug into our budget, making sure that we were on good financial footing for the years ahead. And of course, you played a critical role along with Pam and Guy Foreman and Jen and Seth Steer and Lisa and Neil Wallach and so many others in advancing our endowment campaign, now called Derech La'atid. And personally, I just want to say, Bob, that you were an incredible resource of strength and kindness and wisdom and spirituality, really continually able to keep your eye on the ball. And so I just want to say I am incredibly grateful to you for all of your support, not just for me and for our professional staff team, but for our entire congregation. I cannot thank you enough. And I am glad that you're being at least supported now next to you by Susan, who generously picked up a gift from our congregation and disguised it as a Costco package because you caught her unloading the car with Costco. So this is not from Costco, but it's from Kobo. So now that the secret's out, I guess you can open it.
I knew.
It's not tuna fish for the year.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Oh, thank you.
So
So from
Thank you.
our congregation, it is a challah plate inscribed. Can you just read the inscription?
With gratitude for Bob Schechter, Temple President, Temple Beth Elohim. Thank you so much.
We are incredibly grateful, and I hope that it adorns your home as a reminder of the beauty and the bounty that you provided our community. And may we share the bounty of your efforts for many years to come. And so with you in our hearts and with you in our sight, I think of you and all of our board members as I ask for God's blessing upon you and our board with the words, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu. Bless the leaders of our congregation who have selflessly given their time and resources to support our community. Continue to grant them wisdom, strength, and patience to lead us, especially in these challenging times. We are grateful for each and every one of them. And on this day, we particularly ask your blessing upon Bob for the years of service to our congregation. Bless him with health and strength and peace and the continued ability to grant us his wisdom, his learning. And let us all say, Amen. Thanks, Bob. For our second aliyah, we would like to call forward with shalom cards and hands raised the members of our caring community team, but in particular, our mental health initiative. And let's call our second reader.
For our second reading, I'd like to call forward our student Jake Winnig to Torah. Ya'amod Yaakov ben Dov v'shena la'aliyah shniya. Let's join together with this Torah blessing on page 258. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Vorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamavorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Chapter 30, Deuteronomy.
Ki ha-mitzvah hazot asher anachi mitzavecha hayom lo nifleti mimecha v'lo richoka him lo vashamayim hi lemor mi'ale lanu hashamayma v'yikachecha lanu V'yashmienu ota v'na'asena v'lo me'ever le'am hi lemor mi'avar lanu el ever hayam v'yikachecha lanu v'yashmienu ota v'na'asena hikarov elecha hadavar me'od B'ficha u'v'vavecha v'yasoto.
Yasher koach to Jake, and we continue with the blessing after the reading of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. And before our next aliyah, I just want to say that we, as you know, are living in difficult times, and we're seeing an increase in mental health concerns. And so I'm really grateful to announce that this year our temple will be partnering with HRS, a local mental health organization in Wellesley, to do something that I really think is quite extraordinary. And that's to actually place a social worker on our professional staff team to respond to the increasing mental health needs of our congregation. It's something quite unique, but I think a real opportunity for our congregation to take the lead in the religious community in America. For Judaism has always valued multiple approaches to mental health. I think of Judaism's embrace of psychiatry and the use of medication to help people. And in our community, we know that many of our members find it difficult to find a psychiatrist that may take their health care plan or that's actually even open to new patients. And we'll now have someone in staff to help them. Judaism has always valued psychology and how the past influences our present. And we want people to be able to find good psychological care. And once again, this is something that is not always easy to do. And it's especially difficult when sometimes it's hard for someone to simply pick up the phone. And finally, Judaism has always appreciated the importance of what I'll call anthropology or sociology, how culture influences us. And that's really been the role of the synagogue, to provide a place of meaning and healthy living. But now I hope that we can integrate all three responses: psychology, psychiatry, anthropology, sociology, religion, a holistic approach to mental health, to systemically respond to the needs of our congregation, hopefully those in society. And so thanks to a seed gift from the Fish Foundation, we are currently in the process of hiring a new person for our staff, along with HRS. I look forward to introducing them to you. I had hoped we would be able to do so by today, but because of COVID-19, we simply were not able to. But I know that our congregation is positioned to do extraordinary work, and I hope that this is only one example. And so I'm deeply grateful for our mental health committee that's worked hard on this initiative. And on this day, I ask for God's blessing upon them and our caring community team. With the words, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, O God, God of our forefathers and mothers, support these leaders of our community who have helped us shed light on the plague of mental illness and have helped guide our community to help support those who are suffering. Bless them with health and strength and wisdom to continue to guide and strengthen us. And let us all say, Amen. Amen. And for our third Aliyah, thinking of health, I would like to publicly recognize our re-entry committee, all of those who helped pave the way for allowing us to re-enter our sanctuary for the next Aliyah.
And so for the third Aliyah, I'd like to call forward our student Asher Novisky. Ya'amod Asher Michael ben Yehuda ve'Elisheva le'Aliyah Shlishi. And let's join together again in the blessing on page 258. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai havorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamavorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Re'ei natati lefanecha hayom et ha'chaim ve'et ha'tov ve'et ha'mavet ve'et ha'ra asher anochi mitzavecha hayom le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha Lalechet bidrachav v'lishmor mitzvotav v'chukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'ravita u'verachecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata v'shama l'rishta v'im yifnei levavcha V'lo tishma, v'nidachta, v'hishtachavita, le'elohim acherim, va'avadetam. Higadati lachem hayom, ki avod tovedun, lo ta'arichun yamim, al ha'adama, asher ata over, et hayarden lavo shama l'rishta ha'idoti v'chem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz ha'chaim ve'hamavet natati lefanecha habracha ve'haklala uvecharta b'chaim Lema'an tichye ata v'zarecha le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lishmoa bekolo uldav kavo ki hu chayecha ve'orech yamecha lashevet al ha'adama asher Nishva Adonai la'avotecha LaAvraham, LaYitzchak uLyaakov, LaTeit Lahem.
Yasher Koach. And once again, I'd like to invite our re-entry committee to raise their cards or their hands along with Emily and Stephen on our professional staff for doing such an incredible job. I also want to recognize all of our healthcare professionals, as well as our frontline workers and our teachers who are going into schools to teach our children, and anyone else who is taking risk to help advance our society. And if you'll join me in the blessing after the Torah, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. And at this time in our service, let's think of those in need of healing, of body, of mind, of soul. And I think even with the large number of people on the call this morning, we can open up the chat room. If you'd like to type a name of a person you're thinking of at this moment in need of healing, we invite you to do so now.
If you'd like to follow along with the words, we are on page 273. Mi sheberach avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yisheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
At this time, we're going to continue with our Haftarah. Rabbi Sherman?
In just a few moments, we will listen to the words from prophet Isaiah. And through his poetry, he offers us a remarkable commentary on how we should think about and experience this sacred Yom Kippur. God tells Isaiah, "Lift up your voice like the shofar. Tell my people where we can do better. Be the noise, Isaiah," God says. "Be the sound that breaks the silence of indifference." This is not the fast I desire, Isaiah teaches us. We must not simply afflict and only look inward. The fast I desire, he instructs, pateach chartzubot resha, is to break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved. It is to share our bread with the hungry and take the homeless and poor into our homes. This is the sound of the shofar. This fast is here to remind us that this inward work that we do today is just a part. For the fullness of hearing and being the sound of the shofar is seeing the work that needs to be done in this world and actually doing something about it. This is the fundamental requirement each one of us has as we live, to be the shofar like God says. This is truly one of our sacred obligations in this world. And then Isaiah tells us, when we do these things, light bursts forward, and that bright light reaches all the way up to God. And when the sound of the shofar of action, when we break the bonds of injustice, when we cry out, the text says, God will respond, Hineni, I am here. When we sound the shofar, when we act, when we listen and recognize, when we use our fast for goodness and blessing, God hears us and is with us. And so let us now listen to these powerful words from the prophet Isaiah, page 277. Cantor, if you'll introduce our students.
I would love to call forward our students Gabe Lieberman and Liv Davidson, who will be offering our blessings and Haftarah reading today.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Keira v'garon al tachsoch kashofar harem kolecha v'haged le'ami pisham ulvet Yaakov chatotam ve'oti yom yom yiroshun ve'tat derachai yachpatsun kegoy asher tzedaka asa umishpat elohav lo asav yishaluni mishpatei tzedek kirvat Elohim yachpatsun. Lama tzamnu v'lo ra'ita ininu nafshenu v'lo teta hein b'yom somachem timseu chayfetz v'chol atzvechem tingosu. Hein l'rivu matzah tatzumu ulhakot be'egrof resha lo tatzumu chayom lehashmiya b'marom kolechem hachazeh Iyeh tzom evcharehu yom anot adam nafsho halachov b'kyagmon rosho v'sak va'efer yatzia halazeh tikratzon yom ratzon ladonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el hane'eman ha'omer ve'oseh המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו emet v'tzedek. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al hanvi'im ve'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu limchila v'lislicha u'lechapara lechavod u'tif'aret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mvarchim otach yitbarach shimcha befi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed udvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad Baruch atah Adonai melech mochel v'solech la'avonotenu ולעוונות עמו בית ישראל, ומעביר אשמותינו בכל שנה ושנה, מלך על כל הארץ. מקדש ישראל ויום הכיפורים.
Amen.
Yasher koach to all of our students today.
Page 290, Hallelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado. Let us praise God's name. If you're able, we rise.
Eitz chaim hi, lamachazikim ba, letomcheha me'ushar teracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedet.
And if we can just close the ark and have people seated, recognizing the time, I just want to say that I guess there are two traditions I'm missing this year. One is that half of the congregation comes up to me and says it's too cold in the sanctuary, and the other half of the congregation comes up to me and says it's too hot in the sanctuary. And the other tradition is Jody would say it's too cold in the sanctuary, and I would say it's too hot in the sanctuary. And this year I'm calling this the revenge of the retired cantor. It's about 45 degrees in our sanctuary. And I'm going to go outside in the sun for a few minutes to warm up, I think. I invite you to take a break as well. Maybe go outside, take a deep breath. Each time we're going to break for about 10 minutes. We'll come back at 11 o'clock for our High Holy Day liturgy, as well as the sermon. Then at 12 o'clock, we'll be followed by TGIHH, our family service. At 2 o'clock, we have our hour of our responses, our moment of communal sharing. At 3:30, our healing service, led by our Cantor Emerita, as well as Noah and Cantor Zell. And then finally at 5 o'clock, our service of Yizkor, Mincha, our afternoon service, and 6 o'clock finally Ne'ilah, where we'll conclude at around 6:20 with our final shofar call and Havdalah. So let's take a short break. We'll see you real soon at 11 o'clock. If we can open up the microphones if possible, we can wish each other a good Yontif. See you real soon.